We've been experimenting with these intergenerational worship services. And so today, since it's back to school Sunday, a time to lift up this experience of not only returning to school, which many of our young people are involved in, but also the call to be lifelong learners. So we thought for today we should try, instead of a separate children's time, a message for all ages. Wink, wink, I think the children's time is often a message for all ages anyway. So to help me, I think it would be good if I invite the kids, if you'd like to come up and sit with me and be with me, because actually I need your help a little bit to get to talk about what we're doing today. So can I invite you to come forward and sit with me up here? And whoa, you can bring your backpack if you want. A little bit later in worship, people will be invited to bring their backpacks forward too. Yeah, come on up, Kevin. Hey, Jackson. Awesome. Hi, Denise. You want to just have a seat? Or not? Great, you got a fidget. That's good. Have any of you can turn so you can see me. You don't have to face them. You can turn around and look this way. Have any of you ever been separated from your parents? Like maybe you're in a store or in a big crowd and suddenly you didn't know where your parent was? Has that ever happened to you? Yeah, that's happened to Jackson. Yeah. Has that happened to you? Yeah. How did you feel when that happened? It's a little scary. Yeah, a little bit scary. Yeah. Well, imagine how your parents must have felt. I can tell you that when Satya or Isa get separated from us even for a minute, you don't know where you are panicked, searching, right? Looking everywhere. Where did my kid go? Because, we feel responsible for, It happened in Target to a kid. You saw that once? Yeah, it's a scary thing. Well, the story that I want to share with you this morning, and we're going to talk about, is a story where Jesus gets separated from his parents when he was a boy. I don't know if you know this story or not, but here's how it goes. So every year, Jesus and his family would go with all the other families to the big city of Jerusalem for celebrating the Passover, a big feast, a big celebration, kind of like the state fair. Lots of people. Maybe some of you have been to the state fair. Now, Jesus at this time was 12 years old. And he went up with them to this big celebration. And when the celebration was over and they started to go home, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem. But his parents didn't know it. They assumed he was part of the big crowd of people leaving Jerusalem. You can imagine a big group of people, maybe it's even bigger than this group of people, walking home, leaving Jerusalem to go head home. That group, including Jesus' parents, they went a whole day before they noticed that Jesus was missing. How do you think they felt? They were panicked. They were scared. Where's Jesus? He's only 12. Where is he? So they started to look for him among their relatives and their friends and everybody in the group. But they didn't find him. And so the only thing they knew to do was to go back to Jerusalem, to go back to the last place they saw him. That's always a good thing to do, right? If you get lost, go back to the last place you saw your family. So they went back to Jerusalem and they started to search for him. They searched for him for one whole day and didn't find him. They searched for him for a second day and still didn't find him. Imagine how scary that would be. Where did he sleep? Where did he eat? Where was he? After 3 days, they finally found him. Where? In the temple. And it says he was sitting among the teachers there, asking them questions and listening. For 3 days he was lost. And where did they find him? In the temple. Now, what is the temple? The temple is like a church, but there's only one. And back in those days, they didn't have schools. So the temple was the place you go for worship and for learning. So basically, they kind of found Jesus at school, at the church, for 3 days. Now, what do you think his parents said when they found him? Child, why have you treated us like this? Look, your father and I, said Mary, have been searching for you with great anxiety. We've been worried. Jesus said, why were you searching for me? Did you not know that I must be here in God's house? But they didn't understand what he said to them. And so they left, and they went home. And it says, his mother treasured these things in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in years, and grew in both God's and humans' favor. May these words be to us our light and our life. Thanks be to God. So today we're talking about going back to school, and that was a story kind of about Jesus, who was sort of, everybody thought, his parents thought he was lost, but where was he? He was in school. He was in school. So, how do you feel about going back to school? Are you excited? How are you feeling about it? Excited? How are you feeling? Excited, Jackson? Yeah, you're excited too, Kevin? A little more mixed. That's honest. Isa, you're excited too. Well, there's lots of feelings that come up when going back to school. Sometimes new teachers, new classrooms, sometimes new school. Oh, it's a big time in your lives. And so we wanted to spend a little time talking about it. What can we learn from this story that might help you as you head back to school? As all of us, even though we may not be going back to a classroom, are in the midst of learning and growing. Well, I brought my backpack with a few things in it to help us understand. Are you ready? So here's the first one. You know what this is? Anybody know what this is? This is actually a cabbage. A cabbage. It's a kind of lettuce. You know, cabbages are kind of leafy, right? This one's got a slice on it because we used it a little bit of it at home. Doesn't it seem like cabbages just last and last and last? They're leafy and they're kind of thick. They've got tough leaves. There are different things you can do with them. You can grill them. You can shred them and put them into coleslaw. A lot of people like coleslaw. Maybe there's other ways you eat cabbage. In soups. Now, the whole time that I'm holding this, though, I bet you're not really listening to what I was saying about cabbages, because you're wondering one thing. You're in your mind, I bet there's one thing. I bet there's one thing that all of you are thinking. What are you really thinking as I'm holding this cabbage in church on a Sunday morning? Why did you bring a cabbage? Raise your hand. How many of you are wondering, why does he have a cabbage? Well, there's one big distinction. There's many distinctions, but there's one thing that's different between a cabbage and a person. Cabbages can't ask the question, why? So all of you are just sitting there with this question going around in your head. Why does he have a cabbage? Why? Why? Why is a great word for questions. Do you ever ask why questions? Why is there air? Why is the sky blue? Why are people so mean? Why do I have to go to church? You ever ask that question? Do you ever ask why questions? Yeah? Can you think of a question that starts with why? Why did I put this in my backpack? What's that? Why is there food in your backpack? Still questions about the cabbage. That's good. Well, there might be other questions that you have that start with the word why. So, why did I bring the cabbage? Not just to have you discover this question why, but because questions are part of what connect us to this story about Jesus. So what did Jesus do? Where was Jesus? Jesus was in the temple. And what was he doing when his parents finally found him in the temple? He was asking questions. It says he was asking questions and learning. I think there's something important there, something connecting. Asking questions and learning. Do you think that asking questions is a good way to learn? Yeah? Well, in fact, I think it's true that questions are the beginning of learning. Asking why can be the beginning of learning something new. So I have a couple more things in my backpack here to help us. Are you ready for the next one? What is this? A light bulb. Now this is an incandescent light bulb. We know there are other kinds of light bulbs these days too, LEDs, complex fluorescent, but this is the kind of light bulb we had for a long time before we had all those new technologies. Why don't you just look real carefully at it? You know, another kind of question, some questions start with the word why. Another kind of question you can ask, Kevin, you want to see? Is the question how? I can't really light it up without some power. What are some how questions you could ask about a light bulb? Questions that start with the word how. How does it work? Good. Any other ones? How do you make it? How did I get it? Great, those are all great questions that start with the word how. How is another wonderful question word. Well, let's talk for a second about how do you get it to light up? Great question. Great question. Well, the question I want to talk about for a second is how did you get that on the inside? Excellent. So the question I want to talk about for a second is how do you make a light bulb? You know, Thomas Edison is the person who has been given credit for inventing the light bulb. And do you know that for a long time before Thomas Edison, there were people who were trying to make a light bulb, and the problem was that the little wires inside kept burning fast. They would just light up for an hour or just a short amount of time, and they'd burn out. And people thought, what good is a light bulb that just keeps burning out? So Thomas Edison wanted to find out, how do you make a light bulb that can stay lit for a long time? Look at all these lights. So how many times do you think he tried to answer that question? He was an inventor, an experimenter, and a lot of his ideas didn't work. 500 is a good guess. 1,000 is a good guess. 6,000 different things he tried before he found one that worked. 6,000. 5,999 times he failed miserably. He couldn't find the right thing. And then that 6,000, I can't imagine it was exactly 6,000, but we'll say it's 6,000. 6,000 times he finally found a wire that would work, that would light the light, and it would stay lit and could be used over and over again for days and weeks. It's a good reminder that sometimes in school, we may not always find the answer to our questions right away. But if we still keep asking and keep working, sometimes we'll find the answer. Okay, good. Last thing. And now this last thing in my backpack here is something that was inspired by something that Satya and Isa did in school a lot last year. It's sort of a challenge. Guess the mystery gadget. Okay? So here is a mystery gadget. All right? I want you to pass that around to each other and look at what this is. Look at this thing. take it just a second and pass it around. I want you to, we've talked about the question why, we've talked about the question how. The question word I want to talk about now is what. What do you do with this? What do you do with this? What do you think you do with this? One of the great things about the gadget challenge is you often don't really know what this thing is, so you have to kind of guess and also come up with creative ideas. All right, any guesses? What do you do with this? Put it in a lake? Put it in the sink, okay. What would it do in the sink? So like you could use it to plug the sink. That's a creative idea. Plug the bath. Any other ideas? Now, does anybody out here actually know what this is? Raise your hand if you know what this is. This is made out of stainless steel. Todd thinks he knows what it is. What do you think you do with this? Do you know? I had no idea what this was until I saw it. And if it didn't have a package on it, I would have no idea. This is stainless steel soap. Do you know what you could do? If you are cooking with garlic or fish or onions, something really, really stinky, and you go to the sink and you take this and you wash your hands with it, it gets the smell out faster. Who ever heard of such a thing? Who would have known? Isn't that amazing? How did somebody figure that out? Isn't that bizarre? Well, what? Asking the question, what? What do you do? What can you do with this is a good question too. What do you, and that's actually a question, sometimes we feel like we're the mystery gadget ourselves. What am I supposed to do? What do I do? So Jesus went to the temple. When his parents found him, he was asking questions. And it says that he was asking questions and learning. So asking questions is the beginning, can be the beginning of learning new things. So I want to encourage you to keep asking questions. Maybe there's a question that you already have as you're thinking about school starting. Do you have a question about school that's starting? Do you have a question? What's my teacher going to be like? What are they going to have me do? Will your teacher be excited? Yeah. You might already have a question. That question can lead you to school. And once you're there, I'm sure you'll discover many other questions. You can bring those questions to your teachers, to your parents, back here to church. This is a place where we honor all of your questions. So follow your questions, children. You can follow them back to your seats. Follow your questions, church. Follow your questions. It's the beginning, the continuation of your learning. What is the question that's emerging for you that you need to follow in this season of learning? Amen.